Wait, what happened to my body, my hands, my watch?
Hi everyone! Welcome to another episode of Watch Fam Chats. I'm so excited to have Charlie Dunn for today's episode. A lot of you know him on Instagram as Books on Time, where he shares his passion for beautiful vintage watches and his passion for learning about watches. Without further ado, let's welcome Charlie. Hi Charlie!
Hi, Eve. Thanks so much for inviting me on.
So tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a watch enthusiast based out of St. Augustine, Florida. I really get excited about vintage watches, everything from old advertisements, books, catalogs. I go down deep dives on the internet, which it's exhausting. My eyes get sore by the end of the day. You know how it is. Watches is basically never-ending obsession.
Can you share with us how you got started in the watch hobby?
Yeah. So I got into watches by kind of tagging along with my father at antique stops, and I got really interested as soon as I found a book called The Classic Watch. Ever since then, I've been kind of digging for information. A lot of it began as modern obsession, and then it kind of transpired into getting into old watches. But yeah, I'd say that's where my watch obsession began.
What made you start writing about watches?
You know, I'm kind of a little bit introverted, and I ended up becoming interested in writing about watches to kind of get a little bit more, how would you say it, confident in talking about them and getting a little bit more outgoing. And so that was how it kind of all started. But yeah, I ended up kind of reaching out to my friend, Tony, at Rescapement, and he was just super encouraging and was telling me, hey, just write about what you're interested in. And I always appreciated that. So after a while, I just started, trying to write as much as I could, as frequently as possible, and about stuff that maybe hasn't been talked about. And then also, if I wrote about something that was already being discussed, that it would be nuanced. And it was at that time that Tony invited me onto Rescapement and said, you can have, free reign with whatever you'd like to write about, which I appreciated a great deal. And then on top of that, it was really kind of a place where I was able to benefit from him being an editor to some of my articles, giving me creative input or showing a little bit of structural improvements. So it's been something that I really have enjoyed a lot. So I wanted to begin writing articles based off the fact that I thought that if I could write them, I would retain more of the information I was interested in rather than just studying it. And then it became kind of one of those things that was very fulfilling, and it's just something that I really enjoy doing.
Can you share with us what's your watch buying or collecting philosophy?
Sure. For me personally, I want to be able to enjoy my watches. So it's not really something that I'm going to be collecting a watch or buying a watch for the sake of it to be just sitting around. I want to be able to enjoy them on my wrist or be able to interact with them in my office. For me, I'm kind of more interested in getting my money's worth out of the watches. It's kind of something that's important to me, but I know there's other people who like to collect and then it's just a matter of hunting for them. In my personal outlook, I want to be able to wear them and show them to friends and not necessarily just have them sitting around. However, I do have to emphasize that I'm being a little bit hypocritical when I say that, because in my office, I do have clocks and pocket watches that are quote unquote sitting around more for decor, I guess you could say. So I'm a little bit contradicting myself when I say that I want to use all of my wristwatches, but leave those ones a little bit lonely.
Among the watches in your collection, which one is your favorite and what's the story behind it?
So my favorite timepiece in my collection is my grandfather's pocket watch. The watch was inherited by my father, and he took it with him to the United States when he immigrated here from South Africa. It has just remained in awesome condition. It is still functioning, and I love that pocket watch.
If you had unlimited funds, what's your grail watch?
Yeah, so I don't necessarily think too much about grails. I have a number of watches that I think are really great and that I'm excited to wear every single time I put them on. So to be kind of a little bit of a contrarian, I'm not going to say a watch, but I will say a clock. I'd really like to get a nice Atmos clock one day, and then perhaps maybe even a travel clock by LaColtra.
Has there been any lessons in your watch journey that you want to share?
I think that the biggest lesson I would say I'm happy I've learned early is to be cautious and try to learn as frequently as I can, whether that's about condition or whether that's about authenticity. That's kind of the area that I think is important for people to try and focus in on if they plan on getting deep into it. But another lesson that I think is just invaluable is to just be enthusiastic and kind towards other people. I'm lucky enough to have a bunch of people in my circle that are kind enough to share a lot of their insights, experiences, and knowledge. So you'd be surprised at how far that can get you. Try and learn as much as you can. Just be nice towards people.
I see that you're really into Vulcain watches. For the people that want to get into Vulcain, do you have any tips on how to buy a good one?
I love this question. So Vulcains are really fun to hunt for, but you have to be a little bit careful in the way that you go about pulling the trigger. A lot of the ones on eBay, because every single caliber is very similar and then the dial configurations can be interchanged quite easily, there can be a lot of room for error. One thing to try and be mindful of is looking for consistencies within a lot of the watches. You'll look at kind of some of the very early Vulcains and see a distinct thick font on the dials. This is quite a really good tell if you're looking to see if it's been redone and you don't necessarily have a trained eye for it. Other types of resources you could look for are books. One book that I think is a really good kind of base resource for someone who wants to go about collecting is the Alarm Wristwatch, The History of an Undervalued Feature. I think that one's a really good suggestion to kind of get a little bit of a foundation of what you want to look for. But then when it comes to actually buying the watch, I would tell people to buy the seller and trust the person who you're dealing with.
Aside from watches, what else are you passionate about?
So beyond watches, I get really excited about crime or detective television shows. I like to go to the movies when there's something good playing, and I also really enjoy spending time with my family.
Thank you for taking the time to do this with me.
Thank you so much for inviting me on.
If you haven't followed Charlie yet, you can find him on Instagram at books_on_time. And you can find his articles by subscribing to Strictly Vintage Watches and Rescapement. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.